This is separation. I'm just doing a video on it because I don't want to lose this, and then I can refer back to it whenever I want. So separation, air law, document 4444, and these are basically the facts you need to know for the exam. You've got the aircraft classes up here. Obviously, remember these because there's questions that just ask purely for the numbers, and they also come into other questions, certainly with weight turbulence here, we'll get onto that later. But if you don't know these, then you are pretty screwed, so you need to get them in your head. We'll start with the separation longitudinally. As you can see, there's quite a lot of it. So the first sort of most asked about is longitudinal separation on the same track. So this could be, used for the North Atlantic crossings, just routes any route where you're flying on the same track as the aircraft in front of you. This is a separation that applies. So you've got 15 minutes is the absolute minimum. So if there's none of these frequent nav aids or the aircraft's not faster, then you need to be 15 minutes behind the aircraft in front of you. It goes down to 10 minutes if there is frequent nav aids along the route, such as VORs, NDBs, sort of dotted along the routes that you can refer to, then you knock 5 minutes off of that. It goes down to 5 minutes if the preceding aircraft is 20 knots faster, and then 3 minutes for 40 knots faster. It's sort of self-explanatory. If the aircraft in front of you is going 20 or 40 knots faster than you, then you can obviously drop the separation time between you because you're not going to be catching them. They're going to be accelerating away from you at a considerable rate if it's 40 knots. Then we come on to longitudinal crossing, and actually before I go on to that, this is how you know if you are, what type of separation it is. If they're crossing, it's within those 315 to 045 degrees or 225 to 135 degrees. However, if the aircraft is behind you, then it will be within this area there and this area here for aircraft in front of you. Obviously you can flip that, turn it around. You're obviously not going to be travelling on 270 heading constantly, so yeah, just remember that. But anyway, this is crossing, so if the aircraft was coming from here or from here, then you refer to this. 15 minutes is the absolute minimum, once again, it's quite handy to remember that. 10 minutes if there are frequent nav aids, just something you've got to learn, not too difficult. Longitudinal distance, so the minimum is 20 nautical miles if there's no nav aid, nothing like that. And then the only way you can reduce it to 10 nautical miles, which is half, is if the aircraft in front of you is going 20 knots faster. So, again, pretty self-explanatory. Longitudinal separation with time. If you have no vertical separation, so the aircraft is at your flight level or altitude, then you've got another 15-minute separation. So, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, so just remember 15 minutes. You get frequent nav aids, go down to 10 minutes, and 5 minutes for, so 5 minutes is if the aircraft, if it occurs within 10 minutes of the second aircraft passing the nav aid, then you can reduce the separation down to 5 minutes. I haven't really seen that in any of the question banks. I mean, to be honest, I'd completely forgotten that even existed. The main ones for this are usually up here, and the distance and crossing. There's not much on time. The only one really is the 15 minutes, but 15 minutes is absolutely everywhere once again. So just remember that. Coming down to radar separation, this one always gets me. 5 nautical miles is the minimum. 3 nautical miles when the radar permits. Neither of those two come up too much, but this one here, 2.5 nautical miles when both on the same localizer. If you forget that, you might as well just not sit the exam because that comes up like every single time. for me at least. So, I mean, just remember that as a fact. Even if you don't really understand it, it's not too hard to understand. When both aircraft are on the same localizer, you need 2.5 nautical miles of separation if there's radar. And then 2 nautical miles if you're on MOTU parallel operations plus separate localizer. So, I don't know, you've got things like the approach into San Francisco. Just type that in on YouTube and have a look at that. I'm sure you get the idea if you don't quite understand. Mach number separation, pretty straightforward. For every 0.01 increment of Mach number separation, so this means the aircraft in front of you is travelling 0.01 of a Mach faster than you, or whatever the unit is. It's the aircraft in front of you travelling faster. So if I'm sat here in my plane doing, I don't know, 0.85 Mach and the aircraft in front of me is doing 0.86 Mach, then we have to be separated by 10 minutes. The same goes if there's no difference in your Mach number speeds. However, it then drops. It's quite easy to remember. As the Mach number increases by 0.01, you can remove a minute. Just remember the rule for the 0 and the 0.1 doesn't really change. That's quite straightforward. Comes up a bit, not too much. Wake turbulence. This comes up basically all the time, so it's just something you've got to learn. There's 2 wake turbulence separation categories, one with radar, and this is the one without radar. It's quite simplified as well. So you've got the preceding aircraft, which is you, and the aircraft ahead, which is, well, the aircraft in front of you, obviously. So medium to heavy is 2 minutes, and then light to heavy or medium is 3 minutes. It's just quite easy to remember. If you're in a medium aircraft, as referring to the categories up here, if you're a medium, there's only one category above you called heavy. Once again, ICAO doesn't recognise supers yet, so I know they are a term in, A380 and whatever other aircraft it is. They are classified as supers because of their weight, but they aren't asked about in the exams yet, so don't worry about them. In fact, you can completely disregard they exist for this subject. All you've got to remember is medium, there's only one category above you, heavy, 2 minutes. Just add the 2 together, medium, heavy, 2. I don't know, whatever works for you. And then light, heavy, medium, 3 minutes. So, I'll just get a nice picture of it so I can screenshot it. But yeah, that is separation basically for the exam.